Great stuff. So yes, thanks for joining us for this, which I think is, maybe it's our 5th creative practice sharing session now. So we're joined today by artist, choreographer, curator, activist and researcher Gabriella Riccio, who's going to talk about her involvement in a project that I was also present at in Madrid, which I'll pass over to her shortly, and then we'll have a short presentation also from Raina from Wow Basic Income. So I'll quickly pass to Gabriella to begin, unless Rona, you had a quick question.
Yeah, I'm a professional singer. I'm just wondering, how do you become an artist to share practice? How can I share my practice in a future session?
It's a good question, and it's easy to answer, and it's email me, and I will put my email address in the chat. So yeah, I'll pass on to Gabriella for this presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Andy. And well, I will just go through a little journey fast to get to my involvement in this One Income, Many Worlds performance. You were also present in Madrid. And I just, not to get distracted, I'm gonna bomb paste some some links in the chat that go through a little bit of a journey. I am a choreographer. I am based between, I'm Neapolitan Italian, based between Naples and Madrid, where I'm living and being active, mainly stuck from the pandemic on. As maybe some of you have already heard of, in 2008, with the crisis in Italy, we had a very consistent movement of self-governed and self-managed cultural spaces. It was a cluster of occupations of symbolic spaces that were underutilized or utilized improperly or threatened to be privatized. And those occupations were mainly started by artists, people in the creative sector. And L'Asilo in Naples is one of those experiences. So we occupied a building, claiming the building to be declared a common. And over a 4-year time, we were in the building performing our practices. So this is an example of a living prefigurative practice where an expanded, informal and open community of artists, activists, and whoever wants to join it tries to reformulate a call to the city for the recognition of practices of commoning. And we elaborated over a 4-year period time a tool, which is a juridical tool. Actually, it is a creative use of law where we try to institute the real practice of the commons in the city of Naples. And this had a successful outcome. So L'Asilo is the first officially recognized urban cultural common in Naples. And after L'Asilo's recognition, this project is expanded to 8 other centers for a total of 40,000 square meters, where different communities could experience a different way of being together and producing together, based on cooperation, on mutualism, on solidarity, sharing and pooling spaces, time, knowledge, and yeah. So from this experience, I joined and co-founded another adventure, which is a translocal network think tank utopic cluster of minds that's called the Institute of Radical Imagination, and you have already had Emanuele Braga on those sessions. And Emanuele also belongs to the Italian movement of these occupations with Macau, where he already spoke of their experience. So where more or less Macau was more experimenting on the economies with this common wallet. In Naples, we were more using the juridical tool to defend mutualism and practices that put the value of relationship at the center. So at the Institute of Radical Imagination, together with Emanuele and Marco Baravalle and other experiences, translocal, so not only Italian or Spanish based, we have opened a conversation online towards a manifesto, an art for UBI manifesto, so which we really finalized into a document that we published, we elaborated and published. And also this manifesto was presented here as a tool. So using the art for UBI manifesto as a background, a team of us started working on a performance, on a performing idea. Actually, Anna Rispoli, who's been part of the online conversations, and Anna Rispoli is an artistic director and creator, but she's also deeply involved and experimenting on different ways of the use of commonizing, putting in common resources. Anna was part of those conversations, and was quite natural to start working together on her idea. Actually, during the same period of our meetings, Anna was elaborating her first idea of what is a performance that took place in the Wiener Festwochen, and that's called the Income, the Unconditional Speech. And on the base of this performance, this very one performance, and maybe I will try to share some images with you just to give you an idea of the work, and also starting with Anna on the screen to have her together with us. So let's try to see if it works. Yeah. Yeah, so on purpose, there's no voice because the performance here is in German and with English subtitles, but it's just to give you a little bit the idea of the outcome of this work. What actually Anna did in Vienna was then proposed to us as a team within the Institute of Radical Imagination to work on. And we started working on a new performance. This time it was based in Madrid, and the title is One Income, Many Worlds, Una Renta, Muchos Mundos. The process to create a performance is almost the same. We started following the guidelines of Anna, and with her participation, of course, working on the manifesto and try to establish the basis of the manifesto, what could be a list of questions that we could have as a baseline for interviews to a group of citizens or non-citizens, of course, people based in Madrid or in Spain, and to interview them on how they relate to money, time, work, and of course basic needs. And these interviews were passing from the individual experience, and so collecting individual stories of how the life of these participants were really relating to those issues, then expanding to a utopian idea, asking them how would the world be and how would their life, first of all, change if they would benefit from a universal and unconditional basic income. So there we collected other answers, and we moved on to a larger question, like how would the world transform and be affected if this measure could be implemented on universal level. So of course, we were challenging people with an idea of a utopian idea. Like today, it's quite a utopia, but it's based in personal experiences and in personal needs. What came out of this conversation that then becomes a text, which is a fictional, that takes form publicly in the form of a fictional assembly, is that we understand how people find, for example, difficult the idea of imagining the possibility of a universal basic income, because there's always the misunderstanding: if I get a universal basic income, then will I have to pay for everything? So one thing that is fundamental here is to understand that a universal and unconditional basic income is a measure that has to go hand in hand with universal basic services, healthcare, education. What was striking, for example, during the interviews in Madrid, another big topic that arose is the topic of the house. Because Madrid, of course, is a city that's going through a very strong gentrification process, and house rents are very high. So the lifestyle of people who are freelancer, independent professionals, is most of the time needs to share. Like most of the time, professionals in their 40s are not able to put up with resources to be able to have or own a house. Like actually, people perceive that it's pretty difficult, no matter how hard they work, to be able to have enough money or accumulate money, for example, to own a house. So the perspective is very different from what was the perspective of people who were, our parents, who could benefit from a totally different economic system of benefits, etc. So what arose from those interviews, for example, was this high level of anxiety. No matter how I work hard, I am always worried that I won't be able to make it because my work is not granted, because I don't have, my rights are not granted. And together with this precarity, a level of anxiety, a higher level of competition that people suffer to be in competition with each other, suffer to be pushed in a system that puts them to compete towards each other to be able to work. So when faced with the question, so what's valuable in your life, people would always would in the great majority reply that relationships are important and that time is important. So here we see how a universal basic income could really be a measure to free up time not to trap people in the spiral of feeling obliged to accept no matter what job to cope with, to meet the how you say, to get to the month, to the living, to make a living, but also to be able to feel free to choose or to shift towards other works without fear of not being able to cope with the present situation. We also had professionals who were pretty satisfied and pretty passionate about their work, but they were also claiming for more time to also be able to do other things, which is not only the care work, but and I mean not only caring for family or children or family members, but actually to be able to be a doctor and a musician, for example. So to have time, people are gifted, people are full of talent, people are full of desires, but the way we conceive work and the way our societies are shaped nowadays don't allow this possibility to be seized by the majority of people. And okay, like this conversation could really then go into many details of the different stories we collected, but the performance as a tool is interesting. It's interesting for me for different aspects. One is that the way the process was really shared as a gift from Anna to the team that's been working in the Institute of Radical Imagination. And so the way this process can really be transferred to other teams that could implement this form of social investigation, but also expanding awareness and try to keep alive the discussion and make people think really and seriously on the possibility of implementing UBI. And on the other hand, is a powerful tool because the dispositive of this fictional assembly, this public speech, tells about personal stories, and those personal stories are embodied by the people who have told us their story. So it was very powerful to witness how people could really empathize and understand that their struggle is not their only one personal struggle, and that sometimes another possibility is there to be seized. And afterwards, after what I also found that worked very well with the performance was the panel that followed the performance. We had more of a panel where also Andy was present, where we could a little bit deepen in a more theoretical way the possibilities and the visions of implementing universal basic income. It was interesting because having the performance before the panel, everything was more based into reality. It was more based into the real necessity and the real possibilities, having then a possible perspective design from a theoretical point of view. And the reason why I started telling a little bit about L'Asilo is that L'Asilo tells the story that sometimes an act of civil disobedience that's not only a protest, but envision a possibility and start to practice that possibility can really change the rules of game, because juridically we really implemented a new system in the city of Naples that entered into the administrative system in Italy and has really had quite an impact on institutional level. So this is a way also to bear in mind that imagining is also what our institution needs, and of course the people who embody those institutions probably needs to get closer to this possibility, to these different visions. The only regret I have is that no institutional figure was present at the performance, but I think that would be also very, very interesting. And I don't know, I mean, I think this is all. I don't want to take too much time. You'll tell me if...
Fantastic, Gabriella, really, thank you. It's like so clear and such like an inspiring project, and I really appreciate the context, the like very relevant context that you've given us there as well. And it's well, you've put the links in the chat for the actual video of that performance, which I think I'd really like to watch as well, like and spend some time with the stories and as well as, and I look forward to seeing the Madrid documentation as well when it becomes available. So I mean, yeah, I could ask a couple more questions, but I did, so it might be nice to open it up a little bit to other people in case they'd like any kind of questions or comments or resonances. I'll open it up to the floor, and if you'd like to start by just sort of saying who you are and where you are, that might be useful as well, because I missed that from the start.
So I say thank you for the links and for your presentation. It was inspiring, but I have to think about it.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Rona?
Yeah, this is really inspiring to hear what you're doing in your country. But here in the UK, we have an extremely far right-wing government, very undemocratic government, and their kind of remit is to make lives as uncomfortable as possible for people who are not the highest earners. So having a universal basic income or universal basic services in this country would be kind of like the antithesis of what they stand for in a way, because they're very, very far right wing, and they're not like previous conservative governments. They are more right wing than most conservative governments that we've had. So it's very inspiring to kind of hear what you're doing in your country, but I don't see it being on the cards in this country, you know, in the foreseeable future. Or if it is on the cards, it would something that would be kind of exploited and done in a really kind of mean way. For example, universal basic income, if it was introduced into this country, would be a very kind of minimal rate of something like £40 a week, and I can't really see it being something that would give people kind of choice to live more freely, because I think that's the last thing this particular government wants. And I'm sorry to be such a negative, you know, kind of negative person, but I'm just being, you know, completely honest. I just don't see it happening. I don't see it happening here for the foreseeable future under the government that we have.
Thanks, Rona. I mean, I just wanted to maybe I had a similar sort of thought when Gabriella was talking about, well, the utopian aspect of the radical imagination, and kind of, I think, you know, one of the things maybe that I saw in the performance there that you were sharing, the one that happened in Austria and in Madrid, is creating that forum for dreaming or for utopianism that might then, I mean, is there anything that you'd want to, I mean, do you think universal basic income could happen in Italy, or what do you do? How do you see the relationship between the reality and the utopian and the radical imagination playing out, Gabriella?
Yeah, well, actually, we are in Italy, like I have a little bit the two perspectives, Italy and Spain. And as Rona was highlighting, yes, the problem is that when we speak of we have nothing like a universal basic income, neither in Spain nor in Italy. What we have are attempts like the reddito di cittadinanza, citizenship income in Italy, which now is actually under attack to be reduced. It was shortly implemented, like in the last 3 years. It's been attacked and reduced because what is actually happening is that in this moment where Italy and Spain have like 40% of the recovery fund investment after the pandemic, actually this money is being devoted to the private sector. And what we see is that under the label of the green transition and the digital transition, what is being implemented and empowered is the private sector. So we really are in danger to really even lose what we had in terms of services and welfare and common spaces. Like, once again, the system is pushing towards enhancing productivity when, for example, the pandemic has shown that when the world stops, the planet starts to thrive. And we had the COP26 and the G20. And what we see is that it's so hard to have the government to be able to slow down. So instead of slowing down to the claim of a green transition or a digital transition, they respond with stronger investments to enhance an overproduction. So the universal basic income in a utopian way, as also stated in the UBI manifesto, is a cosmogenetic measure to be able to slow down from this acceleration of capitalism. Would it be green capitalism or digital capitalism? And it would be probably the best measure to help our planet to stop overproduction, to stop moving too much in a way. I don't know if I'm able to explain the point. But yes, we are very, very, very far from implementing the measures.
And Shemaine?
So I was just thinking about the performance and the people that you spoke to, because it's participation. Just simply, how did you find these people, and was it a series of questions? Yeah, you approached the performance and finding the people.
Yeah. So we were looking for a group that should be, in a way, symbolic of reality. So not to be a group that would just be a propaganda over manifesto, but it would really be the most diverse in terms of gender, age, also a different type of contracts, like people would be on a long-term contract, professionals, and people be precarious or freelancers, unemployed, house workers. Yeah, so we try to keep the group as diverse as possible. And we had a set of questions. If you want, I could even share them with you if you're curious. Do I understand correctly?
Yeah, I'm just curious. So whatever you
yes.
say.
Yes. It was a quite long list of questions, and it was just slightly adapted according to the persons to the person we were talking to. But we would start with, who are you? Just to get the definition of person, and that would be then turned into, and what else? So what else are you? And then we would go like, what are your basic needs, and how do you organize to meet them? What is valuable in your life? What is a typical day for you? So some jobs are more routine based and some others are not. And how is your relationship to free time? So what is free time? Do you need more free time in your life? What would you do if you had more free time? What is pleasure for you? And what makes you happy? And then we would just go into the relationship with work. So what does work mean to you? Are work and money related? And here, of course, it's very interesting what you get from, professionals and freelancer or precarious people. And what do we work for? Who do we work for? And how much do you identify with the values of money? So it was digging a little bit into work ethics. So what kind of work ethics do we have? Where do we inherit this work ethics from? Do you feel obliged? What's your sense of responsibility? But what is also passion in your work, and what is career? Like working towards reaching a career, to reaching a status. And then if you're responsible for other people, if you can neutralize your expenses, if you are a salaried worker, would you like not to, and vice versa? So the reasons behind that. And then we would ask a relationship, for example, with bureaucracy in life, and then collecting experiences relating money, work, and time, moments one could have felt ashamed of not earning enough or not being able to, or so develop a sense of guilt. And if people are capable of disconnecting from the network, from the web, so socials, for example, so how that does communication impact on the average time, and also to listen to dreams of disappearing, from communication. So how is life when we're not bound to this constant availability 24/7? This was also opening up the problems we've had nowadays. Of course, we still speak of work and we consider it as a post-forwardist structure, but we are far beyond that. Work, even more so after the pandemic, when now we also work from home, like really the work has invaded every morning and every space of life. So how to reverse that?
Thank you, Gabriella, and thank you, Shemaine, for opening up to get into the detail of those questions, because I think I'd like to make a link back to some of the other practices that we've shared so far in these sharing sessions. That to me, this approach that you've had with your projects is like a very deep questioning and a deep listening, and as someone who kind of witnessed the performance, it has that sort of emotional level to it, with the kind of spending slightly more time with the people. So it's a smaller number perhaps of people that you've interviewed than we've seen in other projects, but kind of the care taken to really get into the personal aspects of the questions, I think humanizes it and makes it something that people can connect with. So I'm just going to, as sort of self-appointed timekeeper, move the conversation over and invite Raina to present the Wild Basic Income project, but we should still have a few minutes kind of at the end if there's still some questions to join up both presentations. But thank you very much, Gabriella, and I'll pass on to Raina.